We're back, and you're watching On Location TV with my guest today, Kevin Stump. Now, we agreed that I was going to call you Kevin.
Yeah.
Now, you're the CEO of Mississippi Organ Recovery Agency, and before we went on break, we were getting ready to talk about what is an organ donor and what is a tissue donor. So, what is the difference of those?
An organ donor is an individual who has suffered a irreversible brain injury and has been pronounced brain dead. That is one way that you can be an organ donor. And so after brain death pronouncement, and the heart is still beating and their blood pressure is still going on, but the brain has stopped functioning, we can then proceed with donation of organs if the family would like to. We've also started doing organ donation like it really started back in the 60s and 70s, where if a person has a critical injury, they aren't brain dead, but the family said, you know, this has gone on long enough, we want to stop the ventilator, we want nature to take its course. In those situations, sometimes we can offer them organ donation in what we call donation after cardiac death.
Right.
And so an organ donation is a person who is donating the solid organs of the body: heart, lung, liver, kidney, pancreas, sometimes small bowel, sometimes even segments of the stomach go with the small bowel for transplantation. So that's the organs that we're talking about as far as what can be donated and transplanted.
Okay.
And then tissue donation happens after cardiac arrest, cardiac death all the time. Excuse me. And so we're talking about eyes, skin, bone, ligament, tendon, heart valves, pericardium, the sac around the heart, and then saphenous vein. And so that's tissue that can be donated.
Okay. Now, I know years ago that you have some water.
Yeah, thank you.
Go ahead if
thanks.
you need to do that while I'm talking. Years ago, it used to be on the back of your driver's license. There was something that indicated that you wanted to be a donor. And I noticed it, didn't know what had happened, and I'm sure I was like many other people, but didn't inquire as to actually what happened. And what happened?
What happened? Well, we found out kind of like you did, you know, back in, I believe, the 90s, I think it was 95 or 96, the state legislature redesigned our driver's license. And so they took it off the back of the driver's license that you could sign that you wanted to be an organ donor, because you had to sign, and then two people also had to sign. So that took up almost the whole back of the driver's license. Well, they needed that space for other requirements. And so what they did is the individuals who come into the driver's license bureaus, driver's license stations, and say they want to be an organ donor, now you have a red heart on the front of your license. So you can still designate that you want to be an organ donor. You just don't have to sign. You don't have to have anybody sign.
You have to request it.
Right, you have to request it. And the folks at the driver's license stations are getting really good about reminding the people when they come in, you know, have you thought about this? Would you like for us to put that on your license? So if you see a driver's license and it's got a little red heart on the front of it, that person has said they want to help others through donation. So you can still do it. It's just a little bit different way.
Okay. Well, like I said, that answers the question for me, and I'm sure it did for many others.
Yeah.
Now, I want to just go into, I went to the website, and it had just lots of information, basically, that a person could answer if had questions. Pretty much everything could be answered there, but for the people that don't have access to that, I just kind of wanted to go through some questions that was listed on there. And one of the first things that I noticed on there, it said, why should you or I consider becoming a organ or a tissue donor?
Really, this is an end-of-life decision, just like, you know, funeral home arrangements. And, you know, you think about it, what better way to leave this world and, you know, go to the pearly gates than to have saved someone else's life? I mean, I was raised in the church. I attend church, and the core of every religion is really trying to help others and believing in God and greater power and beings. And I was always taught once you got to heaven, you got your heavenly body.
Right.
So I'm finally going to be 6'2". So whatever they can take from this 5'8" body, they can help as many people as possible, because I'll have my heavenly body. And so what better thing to do than, as your last act on earth, help somebody out, save a life. I always joke that if St. Peter sent out an email to everybody saying all organ donors would get to heaven, we'd have 100% of people who want to be organ donors. But it's why take it with you,
right,
when you can help somebody else. In fact, we got a bumper sticker that has been around for a while. It says, "Don't take your organs to heaven. Heaven knows we need them here."
Right.
So
right.
That kind of, I guess, sums it all up.
Okay. Now, what I think there's lots of myths behind that.
Right.
Being an organ or tissue donator, that there's that fear of doing that.
Right.
That people think, well, okay, if I have that at that time, sign on the back
Right.
that, if I'm not dead, I'm going to be, because, that was just
Right.
the fear.
Right.
So what have you all done to help overcome and to educate people to be more aware of what you do in the process?
Right. One of my best friends from college, he had that fear. If I sign up to be an organ donor, they're going to let me die.
Right.
Yeah, I've been in this field now for 24 years, like we were talking earlier.
Right.
Oh, I've seen one driver's license, because typically people who come into the hospital who end up having the potential for donation, they've been in a situation where there's been a traumatic injury, a car accident, a shooting. The police have the driver's license, or the family has the driver's license at home. We never really see it.
Right.
So, we work with the families, and we want the public to know that, when you come into the hospital, the whole focus is to save your life, and that's
Right.
the way we always want it to be. But unfortunately, with all of our skills, the great nurses and doctors and respiratory therapists and all those people and the technology we have here in Mississippi, in this country, there are still injuries and illnesses that we
Right.
can't overcome. And when that happens, if you want to help others, donation can make it happen. And if you're really concerned that if you put it on your license, then don't put it on your license, but tell your family.
Right,
and then
right.
we won't know until we talk to the family.
And
so,
then people that do decide to make
Right.
that decision
Right.
really should express their needs or
Right.
their wants
Right.
before, and then that
Yeah.
step is kind of taken care of.
Yeah, you really help your family when you decide early, that you want to be a donor, because they don't have to make that decision then,
Right.
because of all the other decisions that have to be made. And I understand discussing organ donation with your family is difficult. It's
Right.
not an easy discussion.
Well, it's talking about death.
It's talking about
it's
death, and nobody wants to.
Nobody talks about that.
I don't want to talk about
Right,
it, but
right.
it's a fact of life. And I think back to when I got into this field, I thought, well, if I'm not a donor, that's kind of hypocritical. And so I was a single man then, and my mom and dad were next of kin, and so.
Hold that thought. We're going to get ready to go on another break, because I know that this is going to be a little extended. So we're going to take another break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to finish hearing that story. So we'll go on break right now.